Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Paul here for a Monday morning, early afternoon recording. Probably afternoon by the time this comes out. Going to hit some NFC North news, a little NFC North preseason reaction as well. And then tonight, Jack and I are going to sit down, talk about the broader NFL. Sam Darnold comes in at number 21 in the NFL top 100 players, meaning he will be a top 5 quarterback in the players' eyes heading into this season. I wish you guys could have seen my face. But I haven't followed the top 100 too closely. Every now and then I see where the quarterbacks land or a big player, right? And when I saw Sam at 21, a little piece of me kind of whimpered. How is that? How is this happening? So I put out a poll last night. I got really excited for some reason to put this poll out. How should I react to it? Should I be petty or should I be complimentary? And of course, Petty's leading that at about 60% right now. So someone leaves a comment and goes, how about just authentic? Okay, we'll be authentic with a little petty when we react to Sam Darnold, because I have thoughts on it. That'll be in the show tomorrow with Jack. A little over-under reaction from preseason week 1, what's going on in training camp right now. When we throw Fernando Mendoza in there, Drew Aller looked really good in Pittsburgh. Jack's pretty excited about that. We'll have a bunch of stuff coming out, and we'll see if any news breaks today as well. That we'll cover for the Tuesday show. Be back on Thursday, and then, more preseason. It is like we are here. We are in the not yet, basically there. The grind. I said goodbye to my friends. I'll be doing football content from now through January. It gets real, and we're gonna make a serious push at this thing this year. So for anyone listening right now, really appreciate you guys. If you're not subscribed, please hit the subscription button. Send the show over to your friends, especially if you're an NFC North fan. We have guys a loaded content calendar for this season. We're going to have instant reactions, hopefully, to almost every night game. That's the goal right now, is to be on for almost every single night game. Definitely having NFC North reactions for all of those games. We'll have weekly predictions as we always do, a general reaction, power rankings every week. I mean, this is going to be a loaded content calendar. So not only if you're an NFC North fan, but just an NFL fan in general, we're going to have a ton of coverage. So please send this over to your friends. Give them our channel. We'll have guests. Shoot us over people you want to see on. We're going to do the Andy Herman show again. It is going to be a great season for the Paul Farrington show. And we have a sponsor now. Prize Picks is sponsoring the channel throughout the football season. Which is really exciting. Really happy to be part of North Station Media as well. It is just it's going to be a really, really great year. Ziggy hopped on the phone with me actually and helped me work out this content schedule, which is just going to be a blast. Okay, so NFC North. That's what we're going to focus on here today, and I want to start with the Packers. And there's a bunch of stories going around Green Bay right now. A great takeaway for them from week 1. Trey Smack looked awesome. Hits 2 58-yard field goals, right? One of them doesn't count. 37-yarder and a 38-yarder. So basically he's 4 for 4 against the Steelers. And he had been a little shaky throughout early training camp and earlier on in OTAs. But down the stretch here, we've really seen him come into his own a bit more. Ended family night 6 for 7. And I believe at that point he had one of the lower make rates in the league, even after that. But you see him in this preseason game, you got to be feeling pretty good there. Tucker Kraft is back on the field for 11 on 11s. And the way he talks about his team and being on the field, right? Someone asked him, you don't have to be out here. You have a lot of money on the line. You're arguably the best tight end in football. You don't have that big contract yet. Why are you doing this? And he says everything you want to hear from a star player. We're out here putting our lives and our bodies on the line every week. I die for these guys. He's just a great guy to have in the locker room. I'm expecting him to be on the field against the Vikings week 1. And we'll see. I've seen fantasy draft. Oh, so we'll have a fantasy episode coming out. We pushed that to next week because producer Zach's on vacation and he loves that episode. So we're going to do it with him, the mock draft. But we'll be answering fantasy football questions as well. Please drop those on the community page. I've seen Tucker Kraft going really late, and people are forgetting he was tight end 1 when he was healthy last year. So Tucker Kraft should be back. Aaron Banks, right, competing for that left guard job, it seems, because he has tendonitis in his knee. We'll see how that develops. But where I want to focus the Packer discussion here is the Keisean Nixon news and what's going on with that, that starting outside cornerback role in Green Bay. And he's just getting flamed left and right. There was a viral clip, right, of him missing a tackle, just having really poor pursuit and misses the tackle against the Steelers. I think it was Jeremy Bernard who made the catch. And Packers fans just like, we've had enough of this. We've had enough of this. And then this week, Matt LaFleur comes out and he says, we need corners that are willing and capable tacklers. And Nixon says, in response to him potentially being in competition for this role, I guess I'm being punished right now. I don't know. I don't really worry about what I'm running in camp with the ones or twos. I just keep my process and compete for real. But he says, I guess I'm being punished and just not handling it very maturely, right? So everyone's calling in the effort of Keisean Nixon. And I think it's an important time to just kind of zoom back for a second and think, okay, like who is Keisean Nixon as a player? And you think about his football journey, right? He breaks his collarbone his senior year of high school, and he's not rated as a recruit. So he winds up going out to Arizona Western College, star there, right, as a defensive back and a returner, goes to South Carolina, doesn't start till his senior season, right, again at defensive back and returner, before the Raiders eventually signed him. I believe he was undrafted in 2019, and they don't pick him up before the 2022 season, and that's when Green Bay takes him. That's when you Packers fans, you take him. And from there, he builds his resume as a kick returner. First team All-Pro back-to-back seasons. He starts getting work in the slot. Eventually starts playing pretty well in the slot. And then eventually you move him to outside cornerback. And he has his best year, I believe, 2024, right? Was that his best season? I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. He gets the 3-year, $18 million contract. Yep, that's when you move him outside. Technically, that was the best year of his career in 2024. And last year, he's fine on the field when Micah's there, but not very good when Micah's off. But basically, the point of this is that Keisean Nixon, throughout the entirety of his football life, I think grew up in a single mother with siblings, right? Like maybe his whole life, it's been about work ethic and it's been about effort and just grinding. And when you're buried on these depth charts, think about the average career for NFL players is very short. Not everyone out here is Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. We kind of think differently because we only think about the stars. But most guys in the league, they're in and they're out. And Keisean Nixon was a prime candidate to be one of those guys throughout the entirety of his career. So he's a grinder. He's always been that. Moving up through college, right? Undrafted, unranked, all of that. And here we are now where all of his effort and all of his work ethic is being thrown into question. And it's in the event of, a very public play. That's what we're zooming in on this now, to a very eye-opening play during the preseason game against the Steelers. He's already kind of had an up and down training camp. It sounds like it hasn't been going too well. I'm not there. I can't see it, but it doesn't sound like Keisean Nixon's been all that good. And on the other side of things, who's one of the guys he's competing against? Brandon Cisse, not a first-round pick, right? Not a surefire top 10 lock, like a guy, Mansour Delane's walking in there. He has the job with the Chiefs when you invest that sort of capital in a draft pick. Brandon Cisse is not that. He's a second-round pick. You have high expectations, but it's not his job to lose when training camp starts. It's Nixon's. On the other side of things, right, when Nixon has that play against Pittsburgh, Brandon Cisse is one of the plays of the night where what's the running? Whatever the Steeler running back is in the game, down by the goal line, inside handoff. Looks like the play's kind of dead. I think Cisse, is in the end zone on the ground. They're in the middle of the field. And the Steeler running back bounces it outside, sprint to the pylon. And Cisse gets up and chases him down, makes an unbelievable open field tackle, stops the touchdown. And I'm pretty sure that's when the Steelers actually wound up with a turnover on down on that series. So that stopped the touchdown, prevented the touchdown, gave Green Bay the ball back. And that's the exact opposite, right, of how Packers fans feel the Keisean Nixon play. The guy you're competing against, at the very least in preseason, you're not walking away from these games usually with too much. They don't really matter. Most of the guys who play well in these games, it doesn't really matter most of the time. But what you do want to see is max effort from the guys who are in the game when you're there. And, Even on that series where Cisse had the touchdown saving tackle, on 4th down, there was a moment where Keisean Nixon, it looked like I think was it Rudolph, whoever was in at the time for Pittsburgh. I really should go back and watch the Steelers a little more on this. Whoever was quarterback at the time for Pittsburgh, it looked like, I think it was Will Howard. It looked like he was going to be sacked. And Nixon sort of lets up, and the guy he was covering breaks free of the end zone, and they wind up getting lucky that his foot comes down out of bounds. Otherwise, it would have been a touchdown. So that's another example where it's like, okay, you kind of stopped playing for a moment there before the whistle. And it's just hard when that's the comparison, the max effort at Cisse, and Nixon looks a little lackadaisical. And then post game and, this week, the comments coming out, you start to have a little bit of questioning of like, okay, what's going on with this guy here? And Keisean Nixon is obviously a very talented guy, right? But he's not a superstar. So when effort's called into play, that's when it becomes a little bit easier to see Brandon Cisse taking his job or Benjamin St-Juste taking his job. And Carrington Valentine, we'll see what happens. But as we move forward here, it is one of the biggest questions surrounding the Packers to close out training camp of the preseasons. Who are those guys going to be? Because I can see a world where it gets really shaky really quick for Green Bay in the secondary. And I've seen some people want to cut Nixon, and some people want to trade him. Like, you guys can't really afford that. Your secondary it's depleted, especially at cornerback. And if right now with the unit you have, Bullard's banged up, Valentine's banged up. After Nixon, St-Juste, and Cisse, one of whom's a rookie, one of whom's really struggling, the other whom you brought in not necessarily to be a starter, but some quality depth. If one of those guys go down, do you trust anyone at all? Because you already don't trust the guys you have there. So Nixon will be a Packer. He'll stay on the team. I'd be stunned, beyond stunned. Like, that's not even worth talking about. But it's something that you need to have fixed here. And it's not encouraging when you hear him talking about him and Matt LaFleur. He's like, yeah, Matt and I's relationship's fine. Nothing going on. It just doesn't sound fine to me. It doesn't look fine to those who are watching right now. Packers cornerback spot, man. That is very interested to see how it plays out. And it could make or break your guy's season, especially early on with Micah out, because we saw the level of play drop, not just with Nixon, but most of the Packers players on the defensive side of the ball. He was that impactful. And you feel good about Lucas Van Ness coming out and looking good on his series. I think he had a sack. He looked good. But without Micah, you're going to need to cover. And you should, again, the schedule's not bad to start the year. I just want to double check this Packers schedule. You got the Vikings, the Jets, the Falcons, Tampa, Chicago before Dallas. But if Kyler's any decent, Minnesota, Tampa, and Chicago should have decent offenses. And Atlanta can score. I mean, Bijan just had 2,500 all-purpose yards. So you just don't want to have the beginning of the season get away from you. Their offense should be good, but you never know. And you don't want to be too far behind the 8 ball, because when Micah returns, three of your next 4 games are Dallas, Detroit, and New England, in addition to Carolina, who beat you in Green Bay last season. So you need to start off well. And that could determine the Packers' year. If they got off to a rough start, it might be hard digging out of that kind of a hole. A pretty feel-good story here on Detroit that I want to get to. And Detroit, I always struggle to find Lions storylines that I like to talk about, because good buddy Tom Monroe, who we talk about on this show a lot, he stayed with me in Chicago this weekend. And I said to him, like, what do you want to hear as a Lions fan? Because the Vikings are always interesting. They're always doing some stupid shit that gets attention. It's usually about the quarterback position, and they're in the news. And at the very least, it's entertaining. Chicago too, right? Chicago's always doing something. And right now with Ben Johnson and Caleb, maybe the best team to talk about in football are the Chicago Bears. Green Bay's a little bit closer to Detroit. They're just sort of stable most of the time. I mean, Keisean Nixon's an interesting story, but it's usually not a story where it's like, oh, the whole franchise could blow up here. And Detroit's just been bad forever. But now Dan Campbell, they're sort of a machine. And I guess this offseason has changed a little, right? Terry and Arnold, that whole situation, who's now a Seahawk, and uh, there are a lot of questions there about how the defense is going to look. But again, it's not, it's not Jared Goff related, and this is a quarterback driven industry, sports, NFL podcasting. You want to hear stories about the quarterbacks, and Jared Goff's just been really good. I mean, Jared Goff is. You guys are the Lions fans to listen to this. You guys let us know where you think he should be rated in the league. And by the way, the players, the NFL players, they agree with you. He came in 33 overall. Right now, he's the number 3 quarterback. He'll be by the time this is said and done. And, he leads the league in touchdowns and passing yards the last 4 years. Like Jared Goff is a bona fide star, but he's just not sexy in the way that let's pause here. He's just not going to generate the buzz of Caleb or the Kyler JJ debate. But there was a feel-good story with Detroit, and it could wind up being a very important story with Detroit about one of their backup edge rushers, who we'll see. We'll see what he turns into here. But Ahmed Hassanein is his name, and he was the guy who was actually saying last week. Someone asked the mailbag question of breakout candidates, and I said, "There's an edge rusher. I can't remember his name." It was Hassanein. This was before the preseason game. He's a dude that moved to Egypt when he was 6 years old to live with his dad in Cairo. Comes back at the start of high school to live with his brother, who's a football coach. His brother basically begs him to get into football, and he does. Winds up going to Boise State. He's a 6th-round pick, a practice squad player last year, and the Lions bring him back this season, and he's just been the talk of the town during training camp. He's been awesome. And in his first preseason game leading up to it, he's saying, "I'm going to sack Joe Burrow." In all the meetings, Dan Campbell saying, "I see Hassanein getting a sack here." In his first game of the preseason, 2 sacks, forced fumble, jumped on another fumble that was overturned, 4 tackles total, 3 QB hits. He also was the one who had the huge hit on Burrow that got, the 2 hits that Burrow took, both of them were forced by Hassanein. And just blew around Orlando Brown on that play. He was a starting left tackle in the NFL. Just an awesome story. And when he had that sack at the beginning of the game, he cried. That was his celebration. He said, "I just couldn't help myself." I was watching the play. It's like, what is he doing? Like, he starts kind of like, grabbing his head, and it looks like he gets hurt. That's another thing about the preseason, right? Like these guys who are in most of the time are fighting for their NFL careers. And it's cool to see a moment like that. If you haven't seen it, he's overwhelmed. And he winds up having an awesome game in addition to already having an awesome camp. And it matters for Detroit because I'm not saying he's going to be the guy opposite Aiden Hutchinson. Maybe he will. I mean, why limit him? But at the very least, the running mate next to Hutchinson, you're talking DJ Wanum, you're talking Derek Moore, and now if you throw Hassanein in here, all of a sudden Detroit kind of has a capable pass rushing unit, or at least you're hoping they do. And you could give Aiden Hutchinson some more breaks, have him fresh to go for the 4th quarter. That depth matters because they haven't been able to trust really anyone next to him. And if you're getting this sort of production, I know, again, it's the preseason. I just said it doesn't really matter too much, but that could have an impact down the line. Keep him fresh. We know the Lions, the injury stories they have. Aiden Hutchinson, someone who has had arguably the most major of any injury there. Giving him any breaks you can is going to be beneficial. And Hassanein, it's a cool story. And by the way, if he's good at football, he's good at football. I love this quote here. "There's no better feeling than playing for this team because this team means so much to me. I love the Detroit Lions. I love Coach Campbell. I even told him I loved him before the game, and he said, 'I love you.'" Kind of cool. Kind of a cool story. That's easy guy to root for, especially if you're a Lions fan. I mean, I love the Detroit Lions. I love Coach Campbell. But those are the guys you want on your football team. Just a cool story out of Detroit there. It's a scorching sports summer, and you can make all your picks on Prize Picks. Women's basketball and baseball are heating up, and every football preseason game kicks off this month on Prize Picks. And with big tennis slams and major golf tournaments on the horizon, there's no better place for all of your summer sports picks than Prize Picks, America's #1 sports pick app. Prize Picks makes it super easy. All I need to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats. Then I submit my lineup, and I can follow along with the progress right in the app. It makes watching the games even more exciting when every moment matters. And looking ahead at the 2026 football season, there's a couple rivals that I hate to admit I actually think are going to have pretty big numbers. Caleb Williams, 3,599.5 passing yards. That feels like a more. That feels like it has to be a more. Over 3,900 yards last year. Year 2 with Ben Johnson in that offense. We've heard about the development of Caleb. It seems like a good year to invest in Chicago. I'm going to go more on Caleb. And for a second pick, Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. This is really tough. Two rivals. 4,049.5 passing yards. Guys, Jared Goff the last 4 years, 4,400 yards, 4,600 yards, 4,600 yards, 4,500 yards. Almost 46 again. It's hard to think he's not going to put up similar numbers. He's been doing it for years. So Caleb Williams, Jared Goff, I'm going more on both of those guys with Prize Picks. The football preseason is here, and there's no better place to run your game than Prize Picks, America's #1 sports pick app. We've got star players on new teams and a rookie class ready to take over, all while teams look to get started on the biggest football season yet. Make a lineup with player stats, pick game winners, spreads, or totals, and combine your picks in the same lineup. All on Prize Picks, now available in all 50 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, America's #1 sports pick app. There's a viral clip of Mike Macdonald. I know I said let's talk about Chicago. I go right to Seattle, but I promise there's a point to this. There's a viral clip of Mike Macdonald just chewing into Derek Hall, one of the Seahawks edge rushers. Good player. That's on Hard Knocks. I haven't watched Hard Knocks, by the way. I've never really gotten into it. Even the year with the Jets and Rodgers, it was exciting. And there's that, the clip of Rodgers with Shivers by Ed Sheeran playing in the background. It's still like it's kind of exciting when you're listening to Robert Saleh and them talk. I thought the Jets were going to go to the Super Bowl almost. Like I fully bought into that, and it just kind of obviously the way it played out sucked for them. But I've never really been a Hard Knocks guy, and I'm still not to this day. But they do have good clips from the show that come out, and one of them with Mike Macdonald ripping into Derek Hall. He's just saying, he's like, "What are you doing? You're too close to Darnold. There's a play you just got close to Darnold." And Hall saying, like, I know, what do you want me to do? Like, where do you want me to go? He's like, no, like too close. Like, you get away. And it happens again on the next play. And Macdonald, he just kind of loses it. He's like, what are you doing? Like, you're too close. You're too close. And Hall saying, there's nothing I can do, blah, blah, blah. And Macdonald looks at him and goes, you complain all you want, but it turns out I'm running the fucking practice. And he pulls him out. And he's beside himself. McDonald's as good of a coach as you get in the league, right? Defensive genius. If you were to draft coaches, he's probably going top 5, top 10. And even he knows, right? His side of the ball is defense, but he knows where his bread's buttered. It's quarterback. Sam Darnold goes down, your season's over. It really doesn't matter how good your defense is. You don't touch those guys. There's a reason they're in the different colored jersey. If you trip, you take their leg out, the season ends for your team. And Macdonald is well aware of that. So I'm reading the article by Dan Pompei about Ben Johnson last week, and it talks about the physical, aggressive practices that he wants these guys attacking, ready to go. That's how they're winning the NFC North. Physical now, we're ready for anything. We're ready for war come the regular season. There's pros to that, right? But there's also cons. And we've seen the injuries that all the teams are dealing with right now. The Bears, Kobe Bryant, the Lions. Well, the Lions, the safeties, yeah. But like I don't know if the Lions have had Mays, Cade Mays. I was like, there's someone on the top of my head. Green Bay is dealing with their own injury bugs. A lot of different dudes. Jamal Adams just gets hurt for the Vikings. Everyone gets hurt during preseason. You just kind of hope that you can survive it so you're ready to go for the regular season. And it sounds like last week there were a few guys that came close to Caleb's feet during practice, and Ben Johnson didn't say anything. And then yesterday, the story comes out. We see the tweet that Kyle Monangai suffered, I believe it was a knee injury, and they weren't sure, how bad it was initially. Grady Jarrett in a non-padded practice basically dove and tackled him. And like midway through, I was listening to some Bears podcast. So like midway through the tackle, sort of realized what he was doing, tried to hold him up, but Monangai got hurt and was getting MRIs. And he's an important piece of that Bears offense. The Kyle Monangai, Rutgers guy, as you know, I'm a Jersey guy. He was awesome last year. And he's a great number 2 to DeAndre Swift. That's really important with the Ben Johnson offense. Ben Johnson wants 2 running backs that he could swap in and out. He did it with Gibbs and Montgomery. He's doing it with Swift and Monangai. And you saw their rushing attack skyrocket up the league last year. That Philadelphia game, I've gone back to that a number of times. Ground and pound in Philly. Fuck you, football. Just straight down their throats, basically, with Monangai and Swift and offensive line that continued to improve and had the protector of the year and Joe Thuney up front. Monangai's an important piece of this team. And the big news is that it looks like he's okay. And that's great. No one roots for injuries, whether you're another team of the NFC North or not. But once again, not much of a reaction from Johnson at practice, it sounds like. And who knows? When the doors are closed, in that article, it was talking about how Johnson lights everyone up, but even lights up Caleb. He lit up Colston Loveland. Like, he goes in on these guys for what they're doing wrong in practice. And maybe he did that with Grady Jarrett. And that's probably, super professional if he's doing it behind the scenes rather than in front of everyone. But I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on there. And it was clearly an accident, but you hear these guys talking all the time. I mentioned Tucker Kraft off the top. This is a physical game. These guys are constantly putting their bodies on the line. They're constantly, you hear them say putting our lives on the line, and you might go like, really? Like, but if you think about it for 1 second, think about how many of these dudes are. Calvin Johnson says he can't feel his feet in the morning when he wakes up. And the brain injuries and like, they really are. These guys are putting their lives on the line. And there's a lot that is uncontrolled. Basically everything is uncontrolled after the whistle blows. So in an environment where you sort of do have a control, right, in your practice session, non-padded, that can't happen. It really can't happen. And again, it was an accident. Grady Jarrett clearly felt bad. He was trying to help Monangai up. He was staying there. Like, he felt horrible about it. But it can't happen. Could you imagine if it was Caleb and it was a serious injury? I mean, your season ends. So I'm really curious how Johnson felt about this and reacted to it. He is an intense dude, and that's part of the reason why the Bears have pulled themselves out of the gutter. Because he brings an intensity and he brings a focus that they haven't had, that they need. And I'm not saying he's wrong, by the way, for not reacting crazy at practice or even at all. But I am curious to see how his mentality, if it changes just a slight bit. Like, okay, like, we really got to hammer home, don't touch these guys when we can control the environment. So I don't know. I just a really fortunate scenario for Chicago to get away with it, a big piece of their offense. And, you got to get lucky a little bit in training camp and these preseason games that your guy doesn't go down. We see it all the time. They got some huge news too, Chicago. Ozzy Trapilo, their left tackle, who came on really strong at the end of last year. He wound up taking over for Braxton Jones. What was his? So he was on the PUP list. He had a torn patellar tendon that he late in the year. I think was it the Green Bay game? Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. But he was playing well. Tears the patellar tendon. He was not supposed to be playing most of this season, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we hear Ryan Poles come out and he's like, "Yeah, we're thinking we might be able to get him back for some training camp." And all the Bears fans, like, their ears perked up. Like, "What? Are you kidding me? We can get this guy?" Well, now he's activated off the PUP list, and he's participating. It's unbelievable. I mean, you get your left tackle. Who knows when he'll come back? I mean, it might be, a few weeks into the season. But like, you might get Ozzy Trapilo back very early this year, which is a huge. You talk about the most important positions of an offense: left tackle, right tackle. is at towards the very top of that list. And you got one guy in Darnell Wright who's as good as it gets, just got paid like it. And now you get your stud second year guy back who is playing awesome at the end of the year. I mean, I know that it's been a little bit of a murky offseason for Chicago, a lot of excitement, but then the Kobe Bryant injury brings a lot down. This is a huge piece of news. And it's stunning. I honestly don't know how it's happening. I was going to talk about Derek Jeter talk to the Bears, but who really cares? He basically said his mentality all the time is when he was in the World Series or any moment that he needed to succeed, he would flash back to even moments like in high school hitting basketball game-winning shots. He was thinking about moments of success rather than failure. But we're not going to talk about that. Okay, the last thing here. When you do a solo podcast, even like what am I? 28 minutes in, you really do get thirsty. It can kind of be tough just talking into a camera by yourself for an hour. Okay. The last one, the Vikings here. And this just kind of sucked. But so Jamal Adams, he's going to be out for the year, which is really disappointing. He was having an awesome training camp, came in, had a big hit in the Giants game, big tackle for loss. He was someone that I was looking forward to seeing Brian Flores use him as, a weapon, as Brian Flores will say, defensive weapon. And just, unfortunate for a dude who's had so many injuries over the course of his recently, right? Too over the course of his career, he's finally feeling healthy, and you're thinking maybe there's a chance, right? This guy used to be a star player. Maybe there's a chance he's finally healthy, feeling good, that you could get something out of him. I think he's 31, 32. And he just, goes down non-contact, season over. Again, that's how quick these things can change. Now there's talks maybe Harrison Smith will come back. But the same people who can argue for bringing Harrison back might say, maybe the Vikings found out he wasn't going to come, and that's why they went after Jamal Adams. It would be huge if Harrison returned. I think this defense is going to be really, really good this year. But don't count out, I was seeing some things about Jay Ward, who's leading the safety competition. He's the guy that had that massive hit on Jackson Dart this weekend. The Vikings will be fine on defense. It's just a disappointing injury to have Jamal go out like that. And then the reports today are that J.J. McCarthy might not even be QB2 in Minnesota. That the close, and this is what I said before, the closer competition might not have actually been Kyler versus J.J., but actually J.J. versus Carson Wentz. And Wentz, I think, was 9 for 14, 80 yards and a touchdown in the preseason game. McCarthy, 3 and outs. And there's one clip of J.J. that's gone viral, his overthrow on the out route. I think it was to Miles Price. And you can't make a big reaction of any play, right? Receiver's blanketed anyway. It might get picked if you throw it, if it's a little underthrown. But he just sailed it over his head out of bounds. And I don't think JJ was trying to do that. I'm just assuming he was trying to complete the pass. But that's like sort of what we've seen from McCarthy every time he's played. And again, I'm not putting all the stock into one preseason play, but the way JJ played looked very, very similar to how he was last year, where there were just some throws you're like, you got to make that one. And that was one where, again, that particular play, I don't know if very unlikely that's going to be completed. But the overthrow, I saw it in my head immediately. Justin Jefferson watching the ball go up, just kind of sulks his shoulders and he walks back to the sideline. We saw that a million times last year, and I'd imagine we'd see it again. That's why it was never really a competition. It's because it doesn't appear JJ is that much different. And he had to be in order to overtake Kyler. Who gives this team a chance? There's a real chance. I'm listening to different analysts picking the NFC North this morning, and a couple people are saying, watch out for the Vikings. And it's an understandable take. Like, they're a good team, and with good, competent quarterback play, they should be really competitive. Again, all three other teams in the NFC North are very good, but with Kyler Murray, the Vikings are going to have a chance. So I think it's going to come. I actually think Carson Wentz is going to wind up winning the number 2 job. Right now, if you had to pick one of the two guys from whatever you've seen, who do you think gives you a better chance of winning a football game? It's probably Carson Wentz. And that's what the Vikings need out of the number 2, right? We don't need a guy with a high ceiling. Like, forget about that. That's Kyler. We need someone that if Kyler goes down, who gives you the best chance to come in and carry you for a game or two. And Wentz sort of did that last year. No, I'm not saying he'd be my pick of backup quarterbacks in the league, but it's starting to feel like JJ's going to be dealt. And that's my guess is that it happens. I also put out a poll last week. I put out a poll on who's the best coach in the NFC North. 2.2 thousand people voted, as our show tends to do. 57% picked Matt LaFleur, 20% Ben Johnson, 16% Dan Campbell, and 8% said Kevin O'Connell. I feel like with our show, you can probably give the win to Ben Johnson there because everyone knows how skewed it is right now. We're hoping that we get more fans of every NFC North team. But, if I was thinking about the question myself, all 4 of these coaches are really good. And we all have our complaints with our guys, right? Dan Campbell's had his Lions fans don't actually love Campbell, but LaFleur certainly gets his criticism. O'Connell's been a little bit under fire lately, even though no one wants him gone. But these are dudes that if you fired one of them, they would immediately be next to Mike Tomlin, the top name of the hiring cycle. Packers people were talking about firing LaFleur last year. Can you imagine how quickly a team like the Titans would want to get LaFleur? One of these teams with instability, the Giants, right? If they hadn't got Harbaugh, you'd want Matt LaFleur there, a guy who brings stability. Even though I know you guys are a little upset in Green Bay with the way things have ended lately, you're in the playoffs every year and you're competing every year. If you're a team like the Giants or the Titans or the Raiders, whoever it is, the Cardinals, who just year after year, you suck. A guy like that can come in and change your franchise. And that's what Dan Campbell did in Detroit. That's what Ben Johnson did in Chicago. Matt LaFleur is an awesome football coach. Now, I don't think he'd be my pick for who's the best coach in the NFC North. But it's just a testament to how good the coaching is in this division that any of these dudes would immediately be the number 1 or 2 guy. So I'd probably lean. I buy into the hype, man. I really do. I'd probably pick Ben Johnson. And I know that there are a lot of listeners right now who are probably going, are you kidding me? 1 season? He's been great, not just as a head coach, but as a coordinator. Like in Detroit, he was a magician. And from the small sample size we do have of him in Chicago, it's been pretty damn good, guys. It's been really good. And you hear the way the players talk about him. It'd be a little bit of a risk, again, because the sample size is so small, but I'd probably lean Ben Johnson there. LaFleur, again, I think he's a great coach. Some of the issues they've had not being able to get past the 7 seed are a mark against him. KOC, despite basically throwing Kwesi under the bus, KOC had to have been involved in the decision with Kyler Murray, more so than we're being told. Because O'Connell, right? If O'Connell's the quote unquote quarterback whisperer, there's no way that if Kwesi and KOC are sitting down picking, getting ready to pick their guy, if they go to ownership, right? And it's, O'Connell wants Darnold, Kwesi wants McCarthy. The Wilfs are going to look and tell Kwesi to shut the hell up. O'Connell's the guy. So he probably deserves more of the blame for JJ McCarthy than he actually gets. And that is just such a franchise-altering decision at the moment that it's another mark against him. Now, when he's coaching, right, he's a very good coach. We've had 13 and 14 win years with them, 2 of the better Viking seasons, 2 of probably the 4 best Viking seasons of my life. Definitely the most wins, right? The Favre year was 12 and 4. We 13 and 3 with Keenum, I think. So tied there. But just 2 awesome teams. Man, it's crazy that we had a 14-3 team and a 13-4 team with O'Connell. Didn't win a playoff game. There's your mark, right? 2 great teams, record-wise great teams, no playoff success. And then you flop on the QB decision. And Campbell then, Dan Campbell's awesome. Great culture setter. You can pick Campbell for this. I just think Johnson's a little more creative Lions fans might come back and say, hey, more of that offense is Dan Campbell than you think. And when he took over last year, they sort of got back into a rhythm. At least in the game he came back. I think it's 500 yards or something. But I'd probably go Ben Johnson. It's really close, but I think I'd lean Johnson. Okay. I don't want to go too crazy with mailbag. We'll save. I put out a fantasy mailbag. We'll save that for Jack tomorrow. Just want to hit the NFC North teams here. Again, really appreciate everyone who's tuning in. The solo shows, I think, are going to continue to get better and better. I'm just sort of figuring out, finding my voice. It's a lot of fun doing these, but it's very, very different from when you have a co-host. And you really have to take a little bit more time to flesh out what your take is. And you guys should see how many times it's not crazy, but there are a lot of times when I'm doing these shows where I'll start it off and like 3 or 4 minutes in, I'm like, I don't like where this is going. So you kind of, you feel it out and you get comfortable with your voice and how you think through these episodes. You guys, I mean, you can see like it's a work in progress, but I'm really enjoying it. It's fun. And again, we're going to have so much content coming out that I'd better get good at it. If you're enjoying the show, again, please subscribe as we're trying to make a real run at this thing this year. Thanks to Prize Picks for being the sponsor of this episode of the show. And we'll have a lot more content coming out tomorrow with Jack, a little NFL reaction. We'll be back on Thursday. And we're getting real close. So, send the show over to any of your NFC North fans for sure, but any football fans that become part of this community, become a member, right? We're going to have some competitions again for members during the season, survivor pool, maybe a pick 'em. I'm sure we could try and get something going with Prize Picks here. So a lot of competitions, building the community here. Hope this is a place where everyone can talk football and just have a good time, escape for a little bit, right? Get away from the real world and come have fun with us. So we'll see you tomorrow and hope everyone has a great start to their week.